He was just stepping out of his high-end, luxury car when his eyes fell on something that would stop time itself. There, sitting on the cold pavement, was a frail woman with a plastic bowl resting on her lap. The sight hit him like a punch to the gut, because the woman begging for coins on the street wasn't just a stranger. She had once raised him as her own. Armin Kapoor had just wrapped up a billion-rupee deal and was on his way to a lavish celebration at a five-star hotel. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his phone buzzing with congratulatory messages, he seemed to have everything that most people only dared to dream of. And yet, in that instant, fate threw a curveball. As his car slowed to a halt at a red light near an old, bustling market, something caught Armin's eye at the edge of a street. There, sitting quietly with her head lowered, was an elderly woman wrapped in a thin, worn shawl. Her outstretched hands were barely receiving any coins into the bowl before her. The image pulled at his heart, tightening his chest. Leaning forward, he squinted through the tinted windows, and as he caught a glimpse of her face, a rush of memories flooded his mind. Her skin was wrinkled, worn from the harsh sun, but there was no mistaking her. It was her. "Nanny," he murmured, his voice cracking with emotion. Before his driver could even comprehend what was happening, Armin flung open the car door and dashed into the street, ignoring the honking horns and the flashing of cameras. He knelt down beside her, and as her eyes met his, a flicker of confusion crossed her face. Then recognition dawned. "Chew?" she asked, her voice shaking with disbelief. "My Chew." Armin's throat tightened, fighting back tears. "What happened to you?" he whispered, his voice raw with pain. She struggled to hold back her tears as she spoke. "Life happened, Beta. After your family moved abroad, I was left alone. I lost my job, the landlord kicked me out. I tried, Armin, I tried so hard." The noisy street around them seemed to fade into nothing. The flashing cameras ceased, and the world seemed to stand still. For the first time in years, the man who had built an empire felt like a vulnerable child again. And in that moment, in front of everyone, he did something no one could have expected. He wrapped his arms around her and cried, right there on the street. People stopped in their tracks, stunned by the sight. Some pulled out their phones to capture the moment, others whispered, but no one dared to interrupt. This wasn't just a reunion. It was heartache wrapped in love. "I looked for you," he whispered through his tears, still trembling. "When I came back to India, I asked around, but no one knew where you had gone." She smiled weakly, her eyes clouded with emotion. "That's because once people rise, they forget the ones who helped them," she replied softly. "But I never blamed anyone. I just hoped you were okay. And now look at you." Her voice trailed off, pride and sorrow mixing in her gaze. Armin gently took off his expensive suit jacket and draped it over her frail shoulders. "You should never have ended up like this," he said, his voice filled with agony. "You raised me when no one else was around. You told me stories, you fed me with your own hands. You were like sunshine in my life." "I had no children of my own," she whispered, her eyes moist with unshed tears. "But you, Armin, you were everything to me." Just then, a vendor approached, offering a bottle of water. Armin nodded gratefully, accepting it, and helped her sip. He then stood up, his expression serious, and turned to his driver. "We're going home," he said firmly. "And she's coming with me." "But sir, the hotel." The driver hesitated. "Cancel it." Armin cut him off. "Tell them I have someone far more important to take care of tonight." Turning back to the woman, he added, "From now on, you'll never beg again. You'll never sleep on the cold street, wondering where your next meal will come from." She shook her head, her voice faint. "I don't want your pity, Beta." "This isn't pity," Armin replied gently, helping her to her feet. "This is me repaying the love you gave me when you had nothing. You gave me everything when I was a child. Now it's my turn to do the same for you." And as he guided her into the back of his luxury car, holding her hand like a child clinging to the safety of home, something in the world felt right again. Because this wasn't just an act of kindness. This was a son finally bringing his mother back home. The car ride was silent at first, the air thick with emotions too deep for words. Armin sat beside her, watching the city lights blur by while she clutched his jacket as if it were the last memory of a life long gone. After a while, he broke the silence. "Do you remember how you used to sneak me lados before dinner?" he asked with a soft smile. She returned a faint smile. "And how your mother would scold me every time she found out?" They both chuckled, though their eyes still glistened with tears. As the car pulled up to the gates of Armin's mansion, the staff stood, momentarily confused by the sight of the frail woman being gently helped out of the car. But as they saw the way Armin held her, their confusion quickly turned to quiet awe. He turned to his house manager. "Prepare the guest room on the top floor. And call the doctor right now." The manager nodded without a word. That night, Armin sat beside her as the doctor examined her. Malnutrition, weakened bones, it was nothing that couldn't be healed with proper care, nourishment, and most importantly, love. "She'll be fine," the doctor said. "She just needs time, rest, food, and love." "She'll have all of that," Armin replied, his eyes never leaving her face. Later that evening, he brought her a tray of warm soup, carefully spooning it into her mouth as she struggled to sit up. She winced in pain. "Let me," he said gently, taking the spoon from her. "You shouldn't be doing this," she whispered, a weak protest. "I should have done it years ago," he said quietly, his voice heavy with regret. She stared at him, overwhelmed with emotion. "Why are you doing all this, Armin?" He looked at her, his voice barely above a whisper. "Because you are the only one who never left me. You raised me when no one else did. Now let me take care of you, just like you took care of me." She covered her mouth, tears spilling from her eyes. But she didn't stop them. Armin stayed there all night, holding her hand as she slept, because sometimes the most powerful thing a wealthy man can do is remember the woman who loved him before he had anything to offer. As weeks passed, things changed. Not just in Armin's mansion, but in his heart. He set up a private care team to ensure she had the comfort she'd been denied for so long. But even more than that, he made her a part of his life. He ate dinner with her every night. He shared stories with her. And when she told him stories from the past, he sat like a child, soaking in every moment he had thought he had lost. Of course, the media caught wind of the story. Billionaire reunites with childhood nanny, brings her home from the streets. The story went viral, with people praising him for his generosity. But Armin wasn't interested in praise. One evening, as the warm light of the setting sun bathed the garden in gold, Armin sat beside her on a bench, sipping chai. "I want to do something," he said quietly, his voice full of intention. "In your name." She tilted her head, curious. "What kind of something?" "A shelter for women who've been forgotten, just like you were," he said, his eyes glistening. "A place where they can find warm food, soft beds, books, and laughter." Her eyes welled up with tears again. "Armin," he gently placed her hand over his. "I'm going to name it Alma," he said, "because that's what I used to call you when I couldn't say Nanny." She laughed softly, wiping away a tear. "You still remember that?" "I remember everything," he whispered. "And I want the world to remember you too." The shelter opened 3 months later, with Alma seated in the front row, looking regal as Armin gave his speech beside her. He ended his speech by saying, "I built businesses with strategy, but I built myself with her love." The crowd stood in applause, and Alma smiled, genuine, full of grace, because sometimes the truest form of wealth isn't measured in money. It's in never forgetting the hands that once held you when you had nothing.